And even though that I have autism, I want to prove that I'm still in my eyes perfect, even though I'm not perfect. But in my eyes, the things that I was doing, I wanted to be perfect at. And back in the day as well, I was much less social than I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was more drawn back. I wasn't afraid of what other people might think if I say hello even. I was just afraid that they were gonna say like, don't talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or just, I was just so negative. I was always assuming that people were gonna think the negative things about me.
Welcome to the stream. What do I call you, Pingu? Do I call you Kevin? What do I call you?
Well, you can call him Pingu, me Kevin.
Okay,
It's whatever. It's whatever you like.
I don't think I'll be addressing too many of my questions to Pingu, especially not because he'll like respond like.
Yeah, he can talk to me, but he will be a little bit far from the microphone, so you will probably not hear him.
Right. Okay. So, so today one of the prime topics that we're going to be covering today is autism, and particularly your journey with discovery of
diagnosis
at 20, and then how you've kind of spent the last is it 6-7 years of basically
almost 7 years already.
Yeah. So could you talk me through talk me through life before the diagnosis? Like talk me through, like, for example, what were there any early signs that kind of went unnoticed? Was there any process before you were 20 where, anything like that, or was it just at 20 you jumped straight into like going for the diagnosis? Then what was the path like leading up to that point?
Okay, so once I got my diagnosis, of course, I start looking back at my whole life and my 20 years before the diagnosis to check where I could have actually seen or noticed things that were going wrong.
Yeah.
And it actually already started when I was like 6-7 years old. I was probably overreacting to some things on the playground, like it might be stupid things like losing in a football game, like not fair rules, or like we had some crazy rules with playing football on the playground, but it's where it's just like whoever sees the player first can claim him in his team, but then you get unfair teams because if the best player is going to same team. And I mean, that's where I was already getting a little bit frustrated by. And then the main thing was actually when I was 13 years old, I guess. I don't know how you call it in English, but I went to middle school. It's like you have elementary school and then the one after that.
Yep.
Which was actually where the main problem started, because whereas in elementary school you have like one teacher who teaches you all the topics you need to learn, you have a different teacher for each topic when you go further.
Yeah.
And also you have different rooms that you have to go to. So after each lesson, you have to like pack your bags and go to a different classroom. Combine that with like 200 other students that you've never seen before, and another 30, like just 30 of them in your classroom, which is a lot of stress. And that's where things actually started going very sideways.
Mm-hmm.
I was crying in classroom because of the stress. I just couldn't handle it all. And then basically when I was 16 and my first relationship ended, that's where I really lost it. That's when I started seeing a psychologist, and even had my first take-in the hospital to recover my mental health a little bit.
Okay. So when you use the term lost it, what does that mean for you? As much as you're happy to discuss that, of course.
It's just I just went I just lights went out. I just didn't know what to do. The whole situation was completely new, whereas the school was still like, it's still school. I have to learn stuff. I have to do homework. I have to go do tests. That was still the same. So it was still like, let's say 20% old stuff that I already knew.
Yeah.
Whereas losing a girlfriend was like 100% new.
Yeah.
like never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally didn't know how to respond to it, how to act. That's where I just lost it. Yeah.
Okay. The reason for me asking really is just simply because I think like being over. I mean, for us, that section of school is just called high school. Our high school's 5 years, so we go from primary school at the age of 11, and then we go to high school, which is the same sort of transition. You go from being in one class with one teacher across all your subjects, and then you go to now being in 10 different classes with 10 different teachers depending on the subject, and that happens for us at 11. And again, I think basically a lot of people can probably relate to that being an overwhelming experience, and a lot of people can probably also relate to losing a partner as being an emotionally overwhelming experience. And I suppose what I'm trying to tease out really is I imagine what you'll probably experience classing as losing it to be what would be considered to be a disproportionate, if that's the correct word, like, you know, or an exaggerated or an elevated emotional reaction to the same experience, because it'd be normal for a person to be overwhelmed for going to moving into high school. It's normal for people to be upset. So when you went to see the psychologist at this point, what were the types of things that you were talking about at that stage? Again, with all of these questions, it is completely down to your own discretion how much you share as well.
At that point, I mean, I don't care. I don't care talking about anything. Basically, it's what happened in the past, and I carry it with me, and it is part of who I am today. So I don't mind sharing. But like, it was mainly talking with her about, will I make it to the next week for the next appointment?
Right.
Is it stable enough to get there? Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, I could keep saying yes, all fine, and then, after a while, it was not possible anymore, and then we had to take the next step. But also, there already was, when that was on my 16th, it was already my first diagnostic, my first diagnostics, basically.
Yeah.
So, but then again, at that age, there were only symptoms of autism, according to that research. And so I could have maybe known it a bit faster. Mm-hmm. But
Okay, so at that stage, what were they treating you for those between 16 and 20?
It was basically just needing someone to talk to.
Okay.
Needing someone to learn to teach life to me, basically.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I really miss in schools, basically. Because I mean, as I grew older, from like 18 and 20, then it was till my 20th, and like, it's still, you have to learn everything, because you have to, like, I didn't used to have a bank account, basically. So basically, I have to learn all that as well. Mm-hmm. And partially, my psychologist helped with that as well, of course, with the mental stuff, but like, just teaching me life.
Yeah.
And how to deal with things that happen in life.
Yeah, like, I mean, as you know, you are right. It's like a lot of if in school, basically they teach you subjects. No one teaches you like how to live, and it's all the things that it's just assumed that we all just know. Or it's just basically it's assumed that, okay, everybody knows how to do this, therefore we don't need to tell anybody how to do these things. And it's like, okay, I'm just, you see a lot of memes saying it, don't you? Like, in terms of like, what they taught me in school, all this, what I wish they'd have taught me is like how to do my taxes. How to like, exactly. Adulting is hard. And it's and a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't basically they don't prepare you for anything. The only thing that I learned in like the last 2 years of high school is basically, what can you do after high school? So are you going to work, or are you going to study even more?
Yeah.
Those were it was looking like I mean, maybe that's how schools have to act, but it was looking like either you study or you work, and that's life. For the rest, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose that is. It's like schools work with what are we making you ready to do the thing that comes next, and the thing that comes next is as you say, it's either more study or more work, and but basically outside of that, we actually have living. It's like you're preparing us for the next kind of stage, and I think that again for neurotypical people that can be kind of overwhelming enough. But for anyone with neurodiversity, it's often automatic. The big assumption I often see is neurotypicals basically assume that everyone's mind works in the same way. And say that I've just lumped all neurotypicals in one boat, which is it's not very fair on them, because some of them are really understanding and very nice, but most it's like we can think of what is common sense to us, and actually there'll be things that probably come naturally to you and the way that your mind works that don't come naturally to a neurotypical and the way that their mind works as well. But we have that, I think we all kind of have that assumption that, oh, well, this is just normal, everybody knows this stuff. And I think that was a lot of the issue with my own personal diagnosis, is the fact that what I was struggling with, it was just like, oh, well, people struggle with these things, get over it or move on. It wasn't just like, okay, yeah, but I'm struggling with this a disproportionate amount. So you say, obviously at that stage, there were signs that when you look back now, you can see them, and maybe the diagnosis could have been a bit earlier. But what was the kind of first point at which a professional sort of suggested, or was it a professional, or was it another person that suggested to you to be assessed for autism?
So basically, at my 20th, I went into a hospital again, and they did another diagnostics, and then it was at another place as well. And then they actually said, like, yeah, it is autism. We saw it in your report from 40 years ago that there were already signs, and now we can actually confirm it.
Okay.
And that was a big relief, because I knew what I had, what the problem was, and how I could actually start dealing with it.
Yeah. What did they tell you what the signs were that they'd seen?
It was mainly behavior-wise, to like doing the same things over and over again. I don't like that anyone is sitting on my spot.
Right.
Yes, I'm Sheldon Cooper in that place.
I wasn't going to say
it. I'm saying it myself. No, but like my spot is my spot, and F you if you're sitting there. I would just rather wait. I would honestly rather wait an hour with eating to sit on my spot than to sit on another spot, because I don't know why. Well, I know why, but it might sound weird, but I just know the view that I have from my spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I know if I sit on my spot, I know, like, I mean, if I would take the table at my house, I sit like where I'm sitting now. My mom is sitting to my right. My dad is sitting in front of me. My brother is sitting, right in front of me. Like, yeah, there. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but like, I know that I will see them like that. And I know that I just know everything, and I know how I picture it. And if I sit on a different spot and it's like, this is not what I'm supposed to be seeing, I don't like what I'm seeing. I want to sit on my spot and see what I see.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't see good.
Okay. Anything else? I want to come back to that in a sec, but is there any before? Like, I like to try and make things roughly chronological. It never works out. It's like,
yeah. I mean, that is the main thing, and then also just like not being able to change my mind of something. If I have my mind set on something, then it's very hard to discuss with me, because I will never. I mean, I will never change my mind. So people can discuss with me how long they want. Mm-hmm. I won't change my mind, because the way I see it feels like the right way to see it. And those are the main two things that I have.
Okay, I'll go with them in that order. I'll go with them in the reverse order while that one's
Mm-hmm.
fresh in my mind.
All
Do
right.
you ever okay? Does it ever get to a point where you do change your mind, and then because you've stuck to that original way so long that you don't want to, or is it just like it
I
feels?
yeah.
Does that feeling ever change for you?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I do sometimes change my mind or like give other people what they want just to not annoy them.
right?
But then, I mean, it is already something that we could talk about later as well. It's about my job. So there was a whole assessment that we had to do before we could actually start the job, and there was one task we had to do, and we had to order things that you needed if your spaceship crashed.
Right.
But it was air, water, food, stuff like that. And I was saying to someone, yeah, but like air, water, food, like your basic needs, they need to be super, super high. And he was saying, no, but you can go 3 days without food and water and this and that. And I was like, no, but dude, this is essential. You need this to stay alive. And yes, you cannot stay alive for that slow. No, but you can stay alive, but you will just be a little weaker. And then I give him what he wanted, and he was wrong, and I knew I was right. But yeah, I just gave him, and that's why we scored weaker on the task, and which is why I was mad because I'm competitive.
Right.
Well, mad is saying a lot. I was like, yeah, I told you that it was that.
Fair
and you
enough.
didn't want to listen, but I went your way to just because otherwise we would be here for like hours disagreeing.
Yeah. We will again. We'll definitely come back to that because I think that's the whole overall topic of. We're going to get into kind of like how you've learned to live with it, but it's not just how you've learned to live with the autism. I guess it's how you've learned to live with other people and their interaction with the autism. So I feel like there's going to be a lot to talk about there. When it like going back to the concept of people being in your spot. So what would it feel? How could you kind of like feel that, like explain that feeling when of like you're in a different, you have to sit in a different spot and what you're seeing is wrong? Is there any way you can kind of explain that to try and make it so that someone who doesn't feel that way might begin to be able to comprehend it?
I mean, I think if I want to explain it in a way, for some people, if there is a spider in the house, for people who are afraid of spiders, if they don't see the spider, sometimes, if they don't know there is a spider, they will not feel bad about it. So if they sit in a spot where they don't see the spider behind them, they will feel at ease. But once they sit in a different spot and they do see the spider, they will be stressing out completely because they see the spider needs to be out. They don't feel comfortable. If the spider ever disappears, they're even at more stress probably.
Yeah.
And that is kind of how I feel. If I'm not being used to having, sitting here is like a shelf, here is one wall, behind my PC is another wall, like that's how I'm supposed to sit. My desk is a little bit curved to my right. That is how it is. And if it's not that way,
Could you explain how that, like, sort of how that feels in terms of like, do you have any physiological reactions to it? Like, are there any feelings in your body, like, like a tightness in your chest or like a butterflies in your stomach, anything like that? Or is it, how would you best describe that?
It's mainly mental. I don't really have a physical problems then, but it's mainly mental. And I'm like, no, this is not right. You're not supposed to be here. Like, why are you here? You're not supposed. Yeah, it's just he's not supposed to be there because that's my spot.
Yeah.
And my family started realizing it already, luckily. So that's how I'm dealing with it at home, which makes it a lot easier as well.
Yeah. Okay, we will. We'll come back to that, I suppose, when we get
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like adaptations and such. And I guess obviously there you've said your family probably need to adapt for you a little bit in that situation,
Mm-hmm.
which is good that that can happen, because I suppose my own main curiosity is what happens when that can't be. Like when it's someone new, or when it's like if someone new visits, or
Mm-hmm.
but I will come back to that in a second. So you get the diagnosis at 20, and you said obviously it made certain things make sense. What was that moment like for you? What was that experience like for you of getting the diagnosis?
At first, it felt a little bit hard. I mean, even though it was a relief, it was still a shock because it's something you don't really expect.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't expect anything actually. I mean, yes, it's diagnostics. I had it before. Before actually nothing came out of it. Yeah, there were some signs of this here and that, but that was that. But then, yeah, it's actually official, and you got the stamp autism. Okay, and then it was like, I mean, it was hard, but it was hard for like one day. I had to process it, because then again, it's a change in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a change for the good, because yeah, it is what it had to be.
Yeah.
And then I was processing it the next few days, and actually I came at peace with it, even though it took me a long time to actually accept it completely. Yeah, how should I say this? People were saying that I would always have, that I would need help,
Mm-hmm.
that I would need help with certain things to process it for me, but or to do just to do different things. And then I was like, yeah, but I want to prove that I don't need that.
Right.
And even though that I have autism, I want to prove that I'm still in my eyes perfect, even though I'm not perfect. But in my eyes, the things that I was doing, I wanted to be perfect at. And it took me a few years to realize that that was just not possible, and that I actually needed help.
Yeah.
And once that happened, I actually started improving quite a lot.
Okay. Before we move forward, I'm actually going to take a question from chat, because again, it fits chronologically with where we are. Before, like when you were in high school or middle school, how would you describe your friendships during that period?
My friendships were actually terrible there, honestly. If I was in the beginning, in the first few years, I had a few people that were coming from my school as well. So from the same school to the same high school then. So that was like that was a big relief in the beginning. But then after that, I think my friendships were like, I was belonging to a group, but let's say if it was a group of 5, and for a school project you needed to make groups of 4,
Mm-hmm.
I was number 5.
Right.
So I belonged in the group, but I wasn't the core member, to say it like that. I was just like, if you have, yeah, I was just the extra part that could be there, but if it had to be cut off, I was cut off.
So, I mean, I can relate a lot to that, because I was probably number 5 out of groups of 4 and stuff. And it's like I used to hate group projects, hated them. Like even when they get brought up in like TV shows now, I'm like, why did they still exist? I'm like, I know why they still exist, but like literally the exact same storyline it runs through every group project every single time is the fact that they're usually the most intelligent person in the groups has they're usually the most intelligent but the least dominant, or the person. Their ideas are pushed to the back of the line, and there's usually one person in the group that just literally wants their name put on it and wants to get the easy A. Like still to this day, thinking back to group projects in school just makes me cringe quite a lot. But it's like if I kind of relate that to what you said about like being in work, again, it sounds an awful lot like if you had have been in that group, they'd have seriously benefited from A, having you there, and B, actually listening to you. So it's I think, is it kids kind of like basically, I think, put it down to who they get on with the easiest. And I want to say not the best, but the easiest, like the least friction in terms of like friendships. And if your mind works differently than other people's, I guess it creates that friction that no one can quite put their finger on.
And back in the day as well, I was much less social than I am right now. I was more drawn back. I wasn't afraid of what other people might think if I say hello. Even I was just afraid that they were gonna say like, "Don't talk to me," or just I was just so negative. I was always assuming that people were gonna think the negative things about me, and I didn't have the balls to say it, or like to just say it and accept whatever they might say. And my head was just, my desk was just ruining me.
Yeah, I can 100% relate. A few days ago, this person who I follow on Twitter, Dr. Jen, she's a neuropsychotherapist, so she's a neuroscientist and therapist at the same time, and she was like, what 4 words would you say to your younger self to help get them through? And I always thought it would be "you are enough," but the ones that I actually say, I think of when I think of the younger self now, is "your time will come." Because again, my ideas were thrown completely to one side as a kid. Like my thoughts, my opinions were thrown to one side. I was seen as awkward. That led to me talking out the corner of my mouth like this, because I was too shy to talk out the front of my mouth and actually speak up and be bold, which led to people misunderstanding me more, which meant, and it's the whole process. So, again, I can completely relate to having to re-socialize relearn to socialize as an adult. And people, when they see me do this on the internet now, they just assume they can't believe that was ever really there, which is kind of nice. It means I must be doing something right. But I don't think people realize like how difficult it is for kids like that to be in school, where people just don't take the time to deal with anybody that requires any degree of work, like any degree. It's like this person, and that's where I think the idea of neurotypical comes from, because ultimately, if we want to socialize, what do we have to do? Well, we have to act like someone who is neurotypical. We have to do the work for them, which is probably where we're going. Maybe, I don't know. That's just based on my experience.
About that, I heard something very, very interesting recently. It was basically, if we are the neurodiverse people, why do the neurotypical people don't want to adjust to us? Because they are so stuck in their own ideas, and we are not allowed to have different needs. If we are neurodiverse, why the F are they so stuck in that own thinking idea on, oh yeah, you need to fit in and you need to do this, and if you cannot do this, well, sorry, we don't have a job for you, or we don't have this for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I read this book called Dream Teams about 6 months ago, and it's talking about diversity in the standard sense, as in diversity of race, diversity of religion, diversity of gender. I think it mentions neurodiversity very briefly, but it doesn't focus on it primarily. And it basically says that most companies, when they try to do diversity, what they do is they hire in black people that act like the white people. They hire in women that act like the men. They hire in gay people that act like the straights. So ultimately, what they end up doing is having a company that looks diverse but doesn't take into account the different ways that people act, speak, behave within different kind of areas of diversity. Essentially, this is bad. It's bad for 2 reasons. One, because it's just bad, but it also means that you end up with no innovation whatsoever. You end up with literally, we're just kind of making this company tick over exactly the same way that it always has. And we see it countless times when a neurodiverse person or a neurodivergent person is allowed to operate within the confines of the way that their mind operates, that they do amazing things. Like you'll see like autistic people who are able to solve complex problems if they're allowed to solve it the way that they want to solve it rather than the way that is supposed to be solved. You'll find people with people with ADHD. Prime example for myself in this is if I try and force myself to work through executive dysfunction, I can get 10 hours worth of work. I can get 1 hour's worth of work done in 10 hours. If I work with my ADHD, I can get 10 hours worth of work done in 1 hour. And it's when you're allowed to work with it, when you're actually allowed to kind of work within the diversity, within the neurodiversity, when you bring to the table the specifics that are related to that diversity, whether that is a regular type of diversity or a neurodiversity, then that is where you actually get innovation. That is where you actually get, better ideas and better innovations going forward. Anywho, that was a slight side note. So
all good.
I do that a lot, but I used to stop myself from doing that as well. But now I just let it happen, and I have no idea how people feel about it. But I was going to say I was about to say I don't care, but I do because I still care. I still care. About
if you have a conversation that is 100% on topic, do you actually have a conversation?
Not really. I actually don't like talking. Don't like talking with people that agree with me 100% of things.
Because if that actually happens, and you actually just talk about the topics you prepared or something like that, then it's just boring, because then it isn't a real conversation, and you're not really talking.
Yeah.
Then it's just you're reading a script, and we might have as well just typed 2 pages of text, and you could have read your lines, and I could have read my lines.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's why you need side notes. Well, need is.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I like to try and this is one of the ways in which I've tried because I don't always succeed with it, to adapt things for a neurotypical audience, is the fact that I know that my brain's okay jumping all around the place, and usually and it'll come back to the bits that are important, and if it doesn't come back to something, okay, every now and then I kick myself later on because I forgot to come back to something, but more often than not it's okay, where we went was better, as far as, but that's I do understand that's as far as I'm concerned, and what I try to do is think about, okay, I want the layout of this episode to be at least in a rough chronological order, so basically a neurotypical person can follow that and go, okay, we've gone from school, we've gone to early diagnosis, we've gone from this, we've gone to the diagnosis that's there, and now we're going to go into. So I try to kind of do that ultimately for the audience, which actually, again, let's take that into that now. So take that into the idea. So you said about learning spending the last 6 years to learning to kind of live with it. I actually want to go first to what ways have you learned to live with it that have helped improve life for you?
Mainly, so basically after I got the diagnosis, I've been into another hospital basically which was specified for people with autism. And there, the nurses as well were specialized. Psychiatrists specialized, and everyone there actually knew what they were talking about. So that I went there a few times, and that's where I learned the most about myself. And then, actually, when I learned all of that, that's when I could start explaining to other people how I actually need my life organized.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing I did was explain most things to my family, and that was about my spot, but it was also about getting. We have a schedule for what we want to eat during the week, because it gives me less stress if I know what to eat and not go down in 2.5 hours and not knowing what we're gonna eat.
Mm-hmm.
It just making with my family and with other people I know as well. I try to ask to be as much clear with me as you can.
Mm-hmm.
I ask you as well, what are we going to roughly talk about? Of course, as I said as well, it's a conversation. We will not 100% stick to that, but it's a rough idea. Same with the same goes for all other things, and I just like to have my life as clear as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is clear, or if like 90% is clear and that gives me rest, I can deal with the 10% of unpredictable things. Like I'm gonna say something stupid, a canceled train or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or anything, basically.
Well, you say something stupid, but it's. I think the main thing for people to understand is that might seem trivial or stupid to another person, but it's understanding that we don't all see things the same way, and it's like, and it's unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because it is unfortunate for anything. It's unfortunate for anything that's unpredictable like that to be a big deal for you. And I don't want to say a big deal for you, a big deal for your brain, because the biggest thing I think I get frustrated with is that, like, people act as if you're choosing to be that way, you're choosing to be affected by it, and it's like, and okay, admittedly I would never choose to not be me and not be who I am, but there are certain things that I would definitely choose and to change. And I've spent like, since my original diagnosis was at 14, so I've been diagnosed for 26 years. But I only really started learning how to live with bipolar, and when I was in my late 20s, and I didn't even know about the ADHD side of things until like last year. So learning to live with those things, and it's about understanding that there are things that you can change and there are things that you can't. And I think the people, ironically, it's people with autism or people with anxiety or OCD are usually considered to be the people that use black and white thinking so much, like as in everything is either all this way or all that way. And I actually think that the outside world tends to take a black and white thinking approach as well, as either everything can be changed or nothing can be changed. And in reality, some things can be changed, some things can be improved, other things that no matter how much you try to improve them, that you can't be. So it's like I know that certain patterns of thought in my head, I can change the channel on those patterns of thought. I think and I can think about other things. On other thoughts, I literally just need to distract myself until those thought patterns have gone. Because if the more I try and push against those thoughts, sometimes the more the stronger and the louder they actually get. And it's taken me years to know the difference. But people who aren't me and like to have an opinion on the way my brain works, like I think that, oh well, if you can change it on one, you can change it on everything, So I think it is for understanding that, okay, yeah, a change of a train time might be completely inconsequential to some people, but to other people it is huge. Don't just assume that because something's not a big deal to you that it wouldn't be to somebody else.
I mean, it was planned that the train leaves at that time, and it is not planned, and then yeah.
So you said then, obviously, if like you do know sort of 90% of what's going on, could you kind of explain the difference, and then you can handle that 10%? Can you explain like what the difference is in you between, like, if in that situation where you're able to handle a change versus how you might react otherwise?
So if I'm prepared to say it like that, with how my day, how the things that I'm doing is gonna plan out. If there is a slight change, then I just think that it sucks. But yeah, I deal with it fairly well, and I just say like, oh yeah, okay. If it doesn't affect others, at least. If it affects others as well, then even though I have the 90% sorted, I still think it's rough because I also ruin others' planning. And if they cannot deal with it, like, I mean, my 10% might be able to deal with, but maybe the others don't have that 10% to deal with.
Yeah.
So that there is a small difference between those two. But if I don't have anything planned, and for example, my parents or anyone calls me like, yeah, we're going away now. Away. Where? I mean, my head just the second I hear that, my head is just starts turning, starts thinking, and it's like, yeah, but wait, where are we going? Bike, foot, car? How long are we going? What are we going to do? Like, yet again, like, what are we going to do, and where as well? Like, is it going to be hot there? Is it going to be cold there? Are there going to be a lot of people there? And my head just started. It's like, the sound your car makes when you drive one gear too low. It's just like yeah, that's my head at times like that. But it doesn't make sound. Don't worry.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm going to throw another one of Mastani's questions in, actually, because it fits perfectly in where we are in the story. So how do you handle things that you have to do for the first time?
I try to make them as clear as possible for the first time. I try to look at things and see what can I do to make clear. For example, I'm going with my whole family on a cruise to Norway this summer, not this weekend, this summer. But yeah, we are now already planning things that we are going to do in the summer on the stops of the cruise. So even though it's the first time that I will be on those places in Norway, I already know what we are going, or like partially know at the moment, since we're still planning it. I already partially know what we are going to do. So trying to get everything as clear as possible is the things that are like that I can get clear. For example, like if I, like, another example, if I have to drive somewhere that I know, like, oh yeah, I have to drive that highway, then take that exit to another highway, and then exit 27, and then like one right turn or something like that. I always know what route I have to go. I always take the things of stress that I can take away. I try to take away as much as I can. Will it be less stressful if I have to go, for example, on a solicitation? No, but it will be. It already causes me less stress that I know the things that I can know.
Yeah. So in that situation, especially like when you're traveling and stuff, how does that work with you with food? You obviously say that at home you know what you're having, it's on a schedule. How does that work when you're away?
That is usually a rough one.
Right.
That's a little rougher, but the thing is that my parents know the food that I like and that I'm comfortable with eating, and I also don't like to try new food. So they know what the food that I like, or the type of food that I like, so they keep an eye out on that as well, just so that it's not too stressful for me.
Okay, so these are things that you've done kind of like to help yourself, right? In terms of communicating, I mean, obviously it sounds like there's a lot of communication required with your family there.
Yes.
In terms of like with work colleagues, with friends and such, like, what have you done that has helped to improve the quality of those relationships?
Well, lucky for me, I don't really have a lot of friends, so that I don't have to do a lot of explaining to people. The most people I've done, I still know. I know from hospitals and stuff like that. Those are actually my only friends. People from school, I actually don't talk to anyone anymore that I actually met in school. So yeah. So basically, they also know my story a little bit because we were kind of in the same boat at that time. To work colleagues, then again, it's also already a part of the work stuff. But yeah, I don't, because of the way my company works, I don't really meet a lot of colleagues from the company itself. But so the company I work for, they kind of rent me out to another company, and I perform services there. I'm kind of a consultant, basically. But then, the colleagues there are limited people who know who I am and what I have. So I just try to act as normal as possible against them.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have questions, I just try to ask them, because I know that if I ask the questions in the beginning, that I will get a clearer view of what I have to do, or what things I just try to get like a clear overview of like everything that can happen. Like that I have, for example, I have situations A till Z,
Mm-hmm.
and I know, okay, this is situation I. Okay, situation I have to do this, 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 and this, and then okay, then maybe there is another situation then, or like, I mean, it will not be go that fast, but like that's kind of a generic idea that I try to get from my workspace.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so with a lot of this, I think it's often a case of like, right, how can the world accommodate for me, but also like, you know, how can I accommodate for the world? What sort of like, how much do you like, do you ever challenge some of the things like that you kind of, you found the level of comfort with, and then it's like, okay, see if we can take this further, like see if we can actually, or does that fall into the same sort of category as change? Does that make sense? Sorry.
It kind of, I mean, it kind of makes sense. So I've been, my parents like to go on holidays. I often go with them. Usually they do the talking. But if I now go on a holiday myself, I know that I have to do the talking, which is something that I wouldn't have been comfortable with, but I know how they do it, how my parents done it. I mean, even though they didn't taught me directly, I observed them, how they do it. So I know how to do it.
Okay.
Now myself.
Yeah. So yeah, you're just basically copying what they've done, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
What's the word for that?
Seeing
mirroring, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, and then also trying to like add my own ideas to it. So like, I think this was bad what they did, so I will do this instead.
Fair enough. I'll bring another actual question from the chat, which says, does the overthinking or planning ever get too much? As in where it gets in the way of living and being able to feel enjoyment? Or is it preferred? You'd rather have it, you actually enjoy it more because of that?
I don't think I overplan, because I also don't like to plan a lot in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I just mainly try to keep it from like week to week, because if I plan it from week to week, also there is less of a chance that in 3 weeks I'm gonna say my grandmother is in the hospital and I have to go there.
Mm-hmm.
If I plan that something now in 3 weeks, then that is something that might potentially happen. If I plan it from week to week, it might still happen, but it's less likely.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's less of an impact on other plans
as
well. So if you plan 6 weeks in advance, something happens next week, that changes all 6 weeks of those plans.
And especially if I have plans for like in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and 6 weeks, because if something happens in the 4th week and they ask me, can we reschedule it? And then I have to say, like, in the 5th week and the 6th week, I don't have time because I already have plans then.
Yeah.
So I have to put in the 7th week. And then they are like, yeah, but we have 2 weeks in advance. Yeah, but I have other plans there. And then it's like, yeah, but now it's 3 weeks. And yeah, but that's so long, because like the last time you saw them is then like 5 weeks ago already. So instead of 9 weeks, it will become 12 weeks. And then it's like, yeah, okay. Shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
So I try to plan, but like no more than like 1 or 2 weeks in advance, because I know that causes trouble in my own head, in my own planning. And if I then have to change my planning, then yeah, I don't like it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I quite like things being planned to an extent, so I can relate to that a lot. I do like leaving a little bit more up to chance though, but I think there's a balance as far as I'm concerned. But I think everyone sits somewhere on that balance. Some people absolutely love spontaneity and don't like planning at all. And I think again that's just something that, like, if we just kind of understand that everyone's on a spectrum somewhere on that. It's like, wherever you are on that spectrum, there's an opposite, and that's okay. And I think that's again what more people need to understand. And I think it is good that you've got people in your life that are accommodating for that for you. Especially, like, I think finding that balance can often be a really, really difficult thing because your parents and you will both want to live your lives in different ways. Exactly. And it's so historically typical, shall I say, for people to say that one way is right and the other way is wrong. It's like, when in reality, just both ways are different, and it's we often consider what is not normal again to be wrong. And what does normal just mean? Normal just means most common or the most ordinary. It's like
But who says that ordinary planning is like the normal? Like, what is normal planning? Is it like planning 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Is it planning what is the normal? What do most people think? Nobody will know. And even if you start asking people, I don't think anyone will ever know, because you can never reach every single human on Earth. And even if you reach every single human on Earth, you're not talking to people that are not able to talk yet. Or that are like everyone under 18 years old already probably needs their parents' permission. And if the parents don't like what they're saying, they can already start censoring it. And then it's like, yeah, you will just never get a generic idea of what is actually right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
Or like, not even wrong, what is like considered normal.
Yeah,
because it just doesn't. Yeah, it
I think
doesn't exist.
we have to joke that if we go off normal being the most common, it's like, then theoretically the most normal thing you can be as a human is Chinese, because there's more Chinese. There's more of Chinese than there is of any other individual nation. There's not more Chinese people than everybody else, but there is more Chinese people than any other individual nation. So therefore,
Didn't India pause them already?
What? Sorry.
Didn't India pause them already?
Oh, maybe. Potentially.
I mean, I know that they came close because China is like a one-child policy. So I think India is surpassing them, or at least they're getting closer.
Yeah.
But I'm not too sure about the numbers right now.
So I need to ask, how does the need for kind of planning and predictability? Actually, before I say this, by the way, when you came back to streaming, the build up on Twitter was one of the most entertaining things for me to ever happen. Every single day a new meme building up the hype for your return, and I'm like I wasn't even there before the return, but now I'm really excited. But so how does something as chaotic and unpredictable as streaming fit into all of this?
I have a clear schedule during streaming. I have a clear schedule of what I do and when I do it. So basically I have set stream days, that for sure, and I have set things that I do during the stream and also during the separate streams. So I have a planning in my head, and I don't always say the planning, but I do have it in my head, even though it might not be clear for others. But I stream 3 times a week. 2 times I play just a single player game on my own, exploring them, usually failing horribly. But that aside, doesn't matter. And then 1 day in the week, I just play with people that are there. I play some co-op game. I play some multiplayer game, just with other people, and like getting the engagement going with others from chat, from wherever. Anyone that is there is free to join if there are spots available. And that's what I have in my head. And to some it might be clear, to others it might be absolutely random what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But that is a clear idea that I have.
But you can have a clear idea of what you're doing at your end. But then there's this lot, and I'm looking over at chat now. There's people in chat. There's the chaos that can happen from that direction. Like, is it like, as long as you've planned what you're putting in, it's okay? That's the 10% again. You know, the 90% is you, and then the 10% is chat. Is that sort of the same rule, or?
That, yeah, I guess you can compare it with that. Like, if there is a lot of people in chat and I miss a message here or there, then I feel sad about it, but I'm not gonna let I'm not gonna let it ruin the stream, for example.
Yeah.
So, and if I do see all messages, yeah, then that's that. But sometimes, you mainly talk to people, so you're basically always reading chat. But if you're very focused in a video game, you know that time can fly. And I don't know if you're aware, like battle royale games in general, Apex Legends, Warzone, Fortnite, that kind of games.
Yep.
You fight one team, and then 17 teams hear gunshots, and they all start sprinting their way towards you. And then, yeah, it gets chaotic. And then you might have to focus, and you might be stressed, and you might miss messages if people are talking. And yeah, that sucks. But I'm sorry. I'm trying to win. I want to win. So be patient. I'll get to you in a second.
Yeah.
Or a minute or 10 minutes. But I'm busy, okay?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was going to say, with streaming, I go through periods of not planning, and then I go through periods of planning. And the reason I don't plan too much, I plan my guests, and that's about it. But up until 3 weeks ago now, it was just before you know, I booked yourself in as well. I had like no guests lined up whatsoever, and now I have until the end of June. So because I put a request out, and I got a lot of really great responses, but and the thing is, loads of them like could change before now and then. Like you said, I don't know what could happen, but I hope they don't. I've got it. But what I used to find is that whenever I planned a certain thing, that the plan never worked, like ever. And if I didn't plan something, it's like then I'd usually end up with space for something that I couldn't plan and I could have planned. And it's just, I kind of just let whatever happens happen on stream now. It's most of it's like, I'm like, right, okay, I've got this guest for today, or I've got this topic for today, and other than that, like, the rest of it's just completely and utterly unpredictable for me. But I suppose, again, that's down to we're having conversations, so the conversations are literally the entire content. So
exactly.
So if I was playing a game, it's a little bit different, because if I can say I'm going to play this game for the next 3 hours, the only thing I have there is that when I do play games is that chat goes really, really quiet, which actually I've spent time in other streams now, and that's normal. If you're playing games, like, chat can go quiet, or there's people just watching and they're just enjoying watching the gameplay or whatever. Because I'm used to chat going
well, that's indeed the difference between different styles. I know that I usually know who is watching, even though they haven't said anything. I know that they're watching and they are like just creeping on me. But yeah, that is what people do, and that's what people are allowed to do. And I do it in so many streams, even though, I never chat a lot in your streams even, but I'm just listening to what you're saying, to what others are saying in chat, and just like listening, picking up a few things here and there, and that is what makes it for me like just interesting to listen, as some kind of like therapy, kind of, while just chilling in a video game. I'm just like listening to you on the background.
Yeah. Cool. This question is from Be Unboxed. How do you deal with people who don't understand you and approach you in a way that doesn't suit you, i.e. people touching your things or moving them around in a way that you wouldn't have?
It depends in which, there are a lot of situations where you can face those people in. All right. If it is in a personal situation, like, I'm gonna say, like family party or something like that with like or like marriage or whatever, then it is like, then it would be like, yeah, fuck off, go and sit somewhere else. Oh no, I actually said it now. I didn't. I actually was trying to avoid saying it, but I did, and eventually. Okay. So I was trying to. Okay, so yeah, then I just think like, yeah, go and sit somewhere else. This is how I am. Can't deal with it. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Like, just sorry for yourself. Find another way. If it's actually people at work, I actually try to work on it, or like work on it like at that moment of time. I try to pay attention to it, but then again, I also have a job coach at my work. I can talk to him. We can try and see what can be done with also the Spock on site from the company, and we will be able to like come to an agreement that person goes away. But I will always try to deal with it in the most civil way as possible. If the person actually is annoying the hell out of me, I honestly don't care about that person as well.
Right.
I can, if the person says it in a respectful way, with respect to me, then I can say, okay, yeah, I will try to see what I can do about it, but I cannot promise anything. If the person comes like, stop doing that, you're so freaking annoying, and I say like, you annoy me, go sit somewhere else if I annoy you.
Yeah.
And don't talk to me. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do whatever. Like, I try to be very respectful to anyone that talks to me or that I talk to. But the second that people are not being respectful anymore, like literally go screw yourself. And I do not give a single thing about you. Like literally, I cannot stand those people, and everyone can know it. And yeah,
no,
that's just how
I mean, I obviously, I'm gonna say, I probably would go as I agree, and it comes down to, and it again comes down to this idea of people mistaking different with right and wrong. That anyone that's coming to you and expecting you to change for them is suggesting that the way that they are is right and the way that you are is wrong. And like that's the whole. I think that's one of the big underpinning things of the side of the problem is the fact that, okay, like the way you said it, then it was like, okay, this person like comes to you and is like, oh, you're so annoying, can you not be different? Like, can be like this. It's like, well, actually, you annoy me too. So, you know, it's like
exactly.
Can you not be different? It's like you know, people like, can you just not be less autistic? And you're like, can you just not be more autistic? You know, it's ludicrous when you turn those things the opposite way around, which means it's actually ludicrous when you actually when you keep it the way that it is, really. My train of thought's just done this thing. I had two questions that I wanted to ask, and my brain's gone completely blank on both of them. By the way, if anyone in chat wants to ask additional questions, please do get them in. We are going to be wrapping up reasonably shortly. I will read the one. I'll have a look at the one that's actually in chat now. How do you deal with meeting a lot of new people at the same time? Okay, so I'll actually read the whole question. How do you get along with meeting a lot of new people at the same time? For example, when you get hospitalized, you meet a lot of new doctors, nurses, and other patients, or at work, a lot of new colleagues, trainees, your boss, etc. And are there any fun or crazy stories about it?
Crazy stories.
I'm going to rephrase that to wild stories because we try not to use the word crazy in the
so meeting meeting new people is always like as many new people is always hard, but I always try to filter them out in groups, if that makes sense. I try to, for example, if you get hospitalized, usually like there's like 20-30 people in the whole part of that in the whole of your department kind of, but like you will always have like a smaller group of like 8 to 10 people usually where you have therapy with or anything basically, and I try to focus then on those people first, to like get to know those kind of people or those people, and then like then that's already half of, or less than half, or like a part of the group done, and then like focus on actually getting and then like ignoring the others mainly. But then again, like I mean, it all depends. Like you will always get people apart from each other, and then you can like learn to know a few people here and there. And that's like at work I would do it as well. Like the people who are closest to me, I will get to know the best.
Mm-hmm.
And then if additional people get sticked on, yeah, like it's like a chat. Like you have like two options, and then those two options turn into four options, and then those four options turn into 8 options, and then continues.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that with like people a little bit as well. You meet like 2 or 4 people, and then those 2 or 4 people know people, and then you can get to know all the rest in like work, therapy, anything basically.
Yeah. I've remembered my 2 questions. And there's 2 parts to the one question, really, which is why I forgot them both at the same time. Which is, in the time since your diagnosis, what, if any, have there been improvements in the way that you've seen non-autistic people, improve their understanding of autistic people? And then the follow-up question to that is, what are some ways in which things could still be improved?
I think now that in like the last few years, I feel like it's been more in the news about like just autism and just in general like mental health. People are starting to realize that it's not something that is taboo. Basically, it's like people are starting to realize that it's something that more people than we know are dealing with. So, I mean, in general, like from my part, autism, but I think in general, the world is doing a good way of like expressing that people are feeling bad.
Mm-hmm.
The way they deal with it, however, is like still terrible. I feel like people have their own ideas. Oh, you have autism, you cannot talk.
Yeah.
Okay, can we have a conversation? No, we cannot, sir. I am unable to talk, and I hope you have a great life at the bottom of a ravine or something. Hopefully alive, so you can starve to death. Roughly. If he would do that, that may be a little bit over exaggerated. That's like a little bit. My mind goes far with that, but like, yeah. Obviously, I hope the man lives a good life, but far away from me. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand.
That was a little bit harsh.
No, I totally get it. So I suppose, is it like, in terms of that, is understanding that there are a significant number of different representations of autism as well. Like, so
exactly.
That non-verbal autism is just one part of it. There are a lot of people, and like, again, I think we're still learning how to have a dialogue around this correctly, because even as I was saying it then, is the fact that like, so often I'll actually, whenever I'm speaking with an autistic person, actually ask them up front whether they prefer person first or condition first language. So whether you prefer to be, and I didn't actually ask you that, so I apologize, whether you prefer autistic person or person with autism. What I've kind of seen across the board with most is that practitioners prefer persons with autism, people with autism prefer autistic people. Which do you have any kind of preference on person first or condition first language?
I actually do not care too much. I actually never. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that I have autism.
Yeah.
If I'm an autistic person or a person with autism, it doesn't change the fact that I have autism, and it doesn't change the fact that I am who I am.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't really care about what you say or what other people say. I just care how they treat me afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the thing, and that is, in my opinion, the only thing that's the only thing I care about. And I think that's also the most important thing that I am trying to do for myself towards others as well. with anything, basically. Like, I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. I'm now like, for example, gendering is like a lot more popular more recently. And I mean, I'm sorry if I speak out the wrong pronouns, but I will still treat you with respect. And I will try to remember how you like to be named. And I'm very sorry if I still the second time do it wrong, but I will still treat you with respect. And I think, of course, I will try to remember the first part as well. But I think me treating you with respect and with like just listening to what you have to say, even though I say the wrong pronouns, is still, in my opinion, also more important. So with like then the person with autism, like if someone says person with autism, fine. If someone says something else, fine. If you start treating me like shit, yeah, then that's the time when we have a problem.
Yeah, I've got a really quick tip for like anybody that's watching, which is if you just treat people like people. I'm sorry to be
exactly
I'm sorry to dramatically oversimplify life for you.
No, but that's how it is.
Just treat people like people. Like, I understand that. Like, I understand that our labels are important. I understand that our diagnoses are important. I understand that our genders are important. I understand that our races are important. I also understand that none of that should change how we treat another person. It's like, so, because this is like, that tells me a lot about you, but it tells me a lot like, but how I should treat you is the exact same as somebody else. Like, because it shouldn't, like, that's, in my opinion, that's what equality is. It's like equality is treating everybody. I mean, now again, I that doesn't mean like, treating everybody exactly equally, i.e. expecting an able-bodied person and a disabled person to be able to walk the same distance. So I do understand those differences, but ultimately treat people like people. It's reasonably straightforward, but yeah, the other thing I was going to say was about, because obviously there's the person with autism versus autistic person, and then I know that again, it's like a lot of places that they don't use, like, there used to be the phrases, and there still are, I suppose they still sort of prevail about high functioning versus non-high functioning autistic, and I know a lot of that then tends to put a person's importance or a person's value down to how that they actually function, and so it's I still think there's a lot to learn for anybody that wants to kind of learn about autism. It is a very but as you said earlier, it's like, there's a much larger percentage of people with autism than what people actually expect or think, and that's just even if you include diagnosed people. Like, there's also significantly more non-diagnosed people, and obviously what we think there is as well. So it's it's worth kind of like learning. It's worth learning, but also being okay with the fact that no one's expecting you to know everything. Like, I learn from every single person that I talk to with every single condition. I've lived with bipolar disorder my entire life, and I learn about bipolar disorder by speaking with other bipolar people. It's like. And I think it's just be open to that. Is there anything that you would like to add that the questions haven't led you towards?
Basically, even though whatever anyone tells you to do or tells you that you can or cannot do, if you feel like you want to do it, if you feel like you can do it, if you want to do that, then just do it. Nobody can tell you. I mean, people told me that I was weak in communication, but I just kept trying and trying and trying, and now I'm talking in my not native language with, like, I'm not gonna say stranger, but like, I've never met you in person, so
weird guy on the
stranger is still like kind of at it, and I'm still like talking for like 77 minutes. Oh, what a coincidence. 77 minutes about myself in a non-native language. So I mean, anything is possible if you just believe in yourself, or if you just want to do it. Even if people say, in like, let's take video games. Even if people say you suck at the video game, but you just enjoy playing that video game because you play it with friends, just fucking play it. Like, fuck other people 100%. If you enjoy something, just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to absolutely end on that sentence. However, there's one more question in chat. It's like, because that's like just fuck everybody else and just do it is a perfect way to end the podcast. But Lindsay says, and I think this would be a worthwhile question to ask as well, is my son is on the autism spectrum and in the past has had many angry outbursts that he's found hard to control. Have you experienced this? And if so, how do you cope with it?
I have experienced a lot of them. I can tell you that. Some more recent than others. Mainly, how I deal with them, I just need to be left alone for a bit. That's my thing. Like, I mean, people can, but then again, everyone might deal with it differently. But I just want to be left alone then. Like, let me just rage. Let me just yell. Let me just hit things. Like, I'm trying not to destroy anything. If I'm destroying things, you stop me. But like, I mean, just let me get all the anger out. Let me calm down again afterwards. Like, I know now how to do it. I even have a playlist on Spotify that is even called, I think it's even called like something for people with autism. Like, it's just like piano music, classical music. Like, it just relaxes me. That's what I do afterwards. Like, I just put on relaxing music and I just try to chill and not do anything that causes me stress, which talking can cause me stress as well. So just let all the rage out, put my headset back on, play some chill music, and just don't do anything for like until I'm chilling in.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, give the person the space to actually deal with it their way.
And if you want a tip afterwards, you can. I mean, if he has that outburst afterwards, I think you can talk to him. Like, if he is calm again, you can talk to him and maybe ask him, "What do you want?" If that happens again.
Yeah.
But at the moment itself, he is not, well, I mean, he's high likely not able to think about what he needs.
Yes.
But if you ask him on a 90% safe time, then he can tell you what he needs. And I think then is a much better time to ask it than when he actually has outburst.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Lindsay will definitely understand that because, like me, Lindsay's bipolar. So there's when I am symptomatic and when she is symptomatic, we become very, very difficult people to talk to, and we don't even know how to deal with certain things ourselves. We don't know what we want in that situation. So even if someone in the nicest possible way is like, "I'm sorry, I'm being very calm right now. How can I help you with this situation?" Like, not able to appreciate it in that moment. Right, we're going to wrap up, but can you let us know where the best place to find you on the old socials is? There have been a few shout outs in chat, but for those who are listening on audio, where's the best place to find you on social media if people want to connect with you further?
My main active platforms is Twitter and Twitch, and that is on PinguKevin, capital P and K. I have Instagram, PinguKevin95. I have TikTok, PinguKevin, but I'm not active on that. I'm trying to be active on it, but yeah, it doesn't happen. But mainly Twitter, Twitch, PinguKevin.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
It has been a pleasure to be here. I hope my goal was to hopefully help other people to tell a story. Hopefully they recognize it. They know how to deal with it. That was the thing I'm hoping to do. And that's also what I'm hoping to do with the rest of my life in IRL as well.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you very much.